Now that the dust is settling as we head into the new league year, transition tags, franchise tags, salary cap cuts are coming. The Packers have a chance to set themselves up for a draft with all the options in front of them.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We got an absolute deluge of news coming out of the early part of this week, with guys getting the franchise tag, guys not getting the franchise tag, with cuts, with questions about players' futures, long-term extensions. Oh, this person got tagged so they could get traded. And of course, a lot of that has a direct relationship to what the Packers' options will be. And there has been a little bit of that narrative out there that I've seen, like all these guys getting tagged, that means all these other players are going to get pushed up the market. I don't see it. I don't see it. Yes, Antoine Winfield Jr. got tagged. A lot of you made the mistake, frankly, of convincing yourself that that was ever even close to an option. It was never going to happen. But frankly, I didn't understand, and still to this day don't understand why the Giants are just going to let Xavier McKinney walk out the front door. So I don't know if there's more to that story, because he was really good, particularly in the second half of this last year. He was excellent. So is there more to that story that we don't know about? It's something I'm going to keep my eye on here, certainly over the next couple of weeks, now that we know he's probably not going to be back in New York. By the way, he has the same agent as Jordan Love, and Derek Ainsley, who was the passing game coordinator for the Packers now, was the lead recruiter on his recruitment back at Alabama when he was coaching up DBs for Nick Saban. This is an interesting moment because we're still waiting on David Bakhtiari and the news there with his money. But the Packers have made it pretty clear that they want to make some moves. This free agent class, there's an absolute mother load of safeties. Ross Uglum, our pal at Packer Report, tweeted out a list of free agent safeties even after the Antoine Winfield Jr. Franchise tag, and it was like 10 names. Like, that's a division worth of teams with safeties. 2 safeties each, and then a couple teams that play nickel safeties or dime safeties. That's how many guys there are worth signing on the free agent market. I'm not worried about Antoine Winfield Jr. being taken off the board. And that doesn't mean that Xavier McKinney is not still clearly the #1 guy. I think for the Packers he is. But there's so many other players who are just quality guys. The Justin Blackmons and even the Tayshaun Gibsons is a name that I've mentioned a bunch. Geno Stone. There are going to be options both at the top of the market, which is where Xavier McKinney is going to come closer to. I don't think he's going to be a top of market type safety, but he's certainly going to cost on the higher end of this free agent class, whereas you could wait if you wanted to and spend less, go in the bargain bin, get you a couple guys, above where they did last year, where they're like Tarvarius Moore and Jonathan Owens are the kinds of guys for, essentially vet minimums like that. They don't have to do that. They can spend $4, $5, $6 million. And maybe it is the prudent thing to do to grab 2 $5 or $6 million guys versus one $12 million guy or $15 million guy. That certainly could be the case. You add Quandre Diggs to the mix, someone who was not great last year, but the year before and the times before had been really good in Seattle. Jerome Baker got cut by Miami in a salary cap move, someone who coached or played for Anthony Campanile, who coached in Miami. Has been a really consistent player over the last 4 seasons. Just got a little too expensive and maybe didn't fit whatever vision they had for the linebacker position moving forward. And sometimes you just do it to save the money. Like Devondre Campbell is the best linebacker on the Packers without question. He's still a quality football player, but he may just be too expensive to keep. And if you don't think the long-term outcomes are there, then you'll just say, well, it makes more sense not to do an extension, but to just move on. But what the Packers can do then is they can eliminate the idea of need heading into this draft, or at least not eliminate it, but mitigate it. Jerome Baker, by the way, doesn't affect your comp pick calculation. If you sign a player who was cut, he's not a free agent, he was cut. Different. Packers in particular love that. You sign a safety, at least one, whether it's Xavier McKinney or Geno Stone or whomever else. There's a bunch of them, as I mentioned. Maybe you sign 2. You go into the draft going, the world is our oyster. And let me add in, and we got the reporting from Matt Schneidman that John Runyon Jr., who had come on our show over the Super Bowl and said, I want to come back to Green Bay if they'll have me. But, we'll see. Didn't seem like he was going to be back. But then fires his agent, hires Drew Rosenhaus, who, by the way, represents Aaron Jones. The Packers are currently negotiating with Drew Rosenhaus on the Aaron Jones deal, extension, pay cut, whatever you want to call it. And it's like when those things happen, it makes me go, okay, he wants me back then. Because now the reporting is there's mutual interest. And that's an underplayed story. I think something that we're going to have to talk about certainly moving forward here is, if John Runyon Jr. had left and Yosh Nijman had left, and Yosh Nijman is expected to leave, the Packers' backup offensive line is basically nothing because Sean Ryan's got to play. You got Royce Newman, who is a non-NFL player, and some developmental guys that I like. Like I like Caleb Jones, but he's never played any meaningful time in the NFL in the regular season, certainly. For a team that has like Super Bowl aspirations this year, that's what you want to do? That's asking a lot. And so bringing back John Runyon Jr. on a low money deal, hey, compete for that right guard spot. We're going to lean into the cross training at center. Maybe your future's at center, John Runyon. Maybe you can take that job from Josh Myers. It makes a lot of sense to have that nice backup option. But then if you have a safety and you have a linebacker and you re-sign some John Runyon Jr. depth, Royce Newman is not really a swing tackle. You're going to have to get a tackle in the draft anyway. That's true almost no matter what. But that's a backup spot. You have 2 quality starting tackles if you want them. At corner, yeah, you have injury questions about Eric Stokes, but Carrington Valentine is a player you really like. Jair Alexander is an all-pro. You probably feel pretty good about the corner position, but you got to add there. But still, you got 3 guys. You bring back Keyshawn Nixon. You don't have to do anything. This secondary was good enough, and I would expect them to be even better with Jeff Hafley. And the safety position was not great for them last year. You bring in a guy who's probably going to be better than Darnell Savage was last year, or you hope at least. Now that's just 25, 41, 58, 88, 91. Now you're just having fun. Now you're just grabbing talent. Let guys fall. Let Keon Coleman fall. Reach a little bit if you really like a guy because it's okay. That's fine. You really like a player? Go get him. You don't have to worry about patching together needs. This is what free agency is for. And it's what Ted Thompson missed out on by being this draft and develop only kind of coach or GM. Brian Gutekunst is not that. Brian Gutekunst is not that, has not been that. And I think he's going to attack this free agency aggressively so that, precisely as I said, he can go into the draft with all of this draft capital. Maybe he goes into the trade market. We're going to talk about the trade market at the end of the show. Maybe he packages picks and moves up. Maybe he just takes a bunch of really good players. And this is the best young team in football, and in addition to one of just the best teams in football. It just gives them so much optionality in addition to making your team better. Clear the money however you can clear it. Add a safety, add a linebacker. If you can, address this offensive line depth. It sounds like they're already doing that with John Runyan Jr. And the world is your cheese curd. I was going to say oyster, but like we had to make it local, right? Although I do love an oyster. They have oysters, Lake Michigan? Is that a thing? Someone who knows more about mollusks than me, tell me. I want to talk about the running back market because I think the Packers could play. I think the Packers could play in the running back market if they wanted to. We're going to talk about that in a second here on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Hey, if you had bet on the Bucs to beat the Clips without Giannis, without Middleton, that would have been a nice one. If you'd have live bet the Bucs in the fourth quarter, you'd have really been having fun. This Bucs team has been incredibly fun to watch the last 2.5 weeks. $150 if your first bet wins. FanDuel wants to make it fun for you. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams, quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Remember the reporting that the Packers wanted to trade for Jonathan Taylor? That at the very least they called to trade, to talk trades for Jonathan Taylor? And apparently the Colts asked for Christian Watson, and Brian Gutekunst, I assume, had to call an ambulance after he nearly died from laughter. But they wanted to play in that pond. They wanted to be in that market for a star running back. They had Aaron Jones on the team. They want to sign Aaron Jones to an extension. It doesn't sound like A.J. Dillon is coming back. This is the most robust veteran running back free agent market maybe ever. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler. All guys who, if you're a fantasy football player, within the last 2 or 3 years have been like top 3 kind of picks. There was a case being made last year for Tony Pollard before the season that he should be the #1 overall pick in your fantasy drafts. Now, it didn't go great. He got hurt and did not look like the guy on full carries that he did on partial carries on a load share. But guess what? He doesn't have to carry the full load for the Packers. Be cool. Be cool. Be cool. I went on the spot track projections. Derrick Henry projected $10 million. I just don't think they can really be there. Like these are the numbers. You just can't, even if it's fake, $10 million a year. And I don't know if they're going to get that, but that's what the market has been. I think the top 3 guys are going to get real deals. Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley. Josh Jacobs is 26 years old. He led the league in rushing a year ago. His spot track projection is 10.5. I think there is a team that will give him 10.5. The Packers are probably not going to be that team, although Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones in the same backfield would be pretty great. Saquon Barkley, same thing, about 10 is the projection. Aaron Jones, one of the comps in this one, by the way. If you talk to people around the league coming out of the combine, there is this sense that some of these veteran guys are going to chase titles. Hey, you're not going to get a ton of money, so go be a mercenary. Go play on the Chiefs and go win like Saquon Barkley with Patrick Mahomes. Are you serious? I don't think that makes sense for Green Bay to play in that sandbox. Austin Eckler, a little over 7. He's not a lead back. Pass catching back, though. Really, really dynamic in terms of his ability to run or catch the ball. But does not seem like the same athlete anymore. Does not seem as dynamic truly on the field as he used to be. Tony Pollard is the name for me that I think the Packers could have interest in. And wouldn't it be funny that the Packers, who have developed Aaron Jones into a star, who is the guy that Mike McCarthy would not play, wanted to play Jamal Williams over this guy. And then the Packers signed Tony Pollard, who was, of course, Mike McCarthy's running back last year and before that. And they have a two-headed monster that is just outstanding. Pollard is the kind of juice that this team needs. And doing it on 8 carries, 10 carries a game is perfect. It's the kind of role he is meant to be in. Can be a pass catcher, quick, explosive, dynamic. If he's healthy, but you got to keep him healthy, which means you have to limit the carries. Aaron Jones getting 12 to 15 carries a game and Tony Pollard getting 10 to 12 carries a game. That's where you want to live. And then you can go into the draft and go, I don't care about running back. Day 3, I'll find somebody. Maybe you take your shot on Audric Estime, even though he didn't run well. The tape says, no, he's still pretty good. He runs away from defensive backs on tape. Play speed over time speed. Tony Pollard is the guy that for me, that would be who I would be targeting. That's who I would want. If the Packers are going to be in that world, the money is better spent elsewhere. But if it's just $6 million, that's appealing to me. Because of what we talked about in the open. This draft is just so wide open for them if they don't have to worry about any position. Just go draft the best players. Just load up this roster with talent. Don't chase anything. And getting someone like Tony Pollard, it's not just filling a need to fill a need. You're filling a need with a player who can vastly outplay a $6 million contract if that is the kind of deal he's getting. He's the kind of guy who, if you need him to, in a game or two here or there, Aaron Jones not 100% or Aaron Jones hurt, can take a bigger role. You're going to, day 3, you're going to get your power back or whatever else. You can still limit the carries there because they want to get a power back, but you can do that in the draft. So you pay a couple $1 million to get a veteran running back. It's not the way that the Packers have operated traditionally, but either was exploring the Jonathan Taylor trade. Shout out to Zach Jacobson over at 247 at Packer Report for mentioning this. The Jonathan Taylor trade, like it was easy to forget to the point that I had like, it was not clicking when I was looking at these veteran running backs and I was like, oh, interesting. I was thinking draft because that's been the Packers' MO for so long. It was so out of character for them to be in that Jonathan Taylor conversation even. And I know Brian Gutekunst said I want to be in every conversation, but that was one of those conversations I thought they could have sat out. And yet they were right in the mix. I would not be surprised if this offseason ends up being much like the 2019 offseason where they go out and they get 2 big money guys and then they have those like 2 other guys that they pay some money to at like quality starter level salaries. And they get ready to make a title run. Or they use a draft pick to trade for someone who gives them that opportunity. I have some thoughts on who those players could be at the cornerback position. We're going to talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Packers. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only and exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. And thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's now also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. The market for corners right now is a fascinating one. Remember, Jalen Ramsey was originally traded to LA for first round picks. And then he was traded to Miami for like nothing. Now, the Rams wanted to get out of the money, and so it was a salary dump, and there's reasons for that. But L'Jarius Sneed has been given permission to seek a trade. The Chiefs still apparently kind of want to keep him, I guess. But they also have to pay Chris Jones. And it sounds like a second round pick, based on the reporting, is enough where you could get the deal done for that. And the Packers can trump a lot of other second round picks. Getting the Jets pick at 41 is a huge boon for Green Bay if they want to use it as a trade chip. Remember, Chase Claypool, the Packers offered their second, the Bears offered their second, and the Bears' second was better. This was another reason they got Khalil Mack. The Bears had better picks to offer. Or at least the Raiders thought the Bears' picks would be the best picks, which is why they treated that the way that they did. You can make the argument that L'Jarius Sneed is better than anyone you're going to get at 41 in all likelihood. And it would be a compelling argument in that case. The problem is, then you got to pay him $25 million. You got to pay him at the top of the market. You're giving up that capital for the rights to pay him at the top of the market. It's one of the reasons why so many of you pushed back against the idea of a T. Higgins trade. And I get that. Listen, I am sympathetic to those arguments. I really am. But here's the thing. What is your confidence level Jair Alexander is going to be on the Green Bay Packers in a year? What is your confidence level he's going to be on the Green Bay Packers in 2 years? And so if the answer is, well, I don't know, then that makes a trade in this case a little bit more palatable, because what you might be saying if you're Green Bay is, yes, we have this guy at the top of the market, Jair Alexander. He's an all-pro, and when he's healthy and locked in, he's one of the best in the league. And you give up assets to go get L'Jarius Sneed, and you put together one of the best corner duos in how long? Two guys who could legitimately be all-pro corners. When is the last time we've seen that? And they deserve it. It's not some like fake Legion of Boom stuff where like Byron Murphy is seen as this really good corner and it turns out he's not. Or Byron Maxwell. Byron Murphy is the corner in Minnesota. I'm old. That would be pretty cool, especially if you give the contract to L'Jarius Sneed, you backload it, and understanding JR might not be on the team in a year or 2 years. I don't know if that's the best allocation of your resources, but it is certainly a thing you could do. There is some reporting, though. Marshawn Lattimore could be a potential trade chip in New Orleans. And that is looking like a day 2 pick kind of situation. He's owed $16 million in 2025, 16 and a half in 2026. That is well below market value for a player of his caliber. And for the Saints, I kind of don't understand it. The 2024 dead cap number, we're talking about a ton of money. They've already restructured him. And so it's a $30 million dead cap hit. I don't know why you would eat that. He's only $1.2 million in base salary in 2024. That would make him appealing, to be sure. Maybe they just want the draft capital. They'll eat the salary cap hit. That seems unlikely to me. There's not really much you can do about that either. Like the restructured money, that money is guaranteed money that they moved. This is the problem with doing it the way that the Saints have done it. But if you give me the option of that guy for a third, for 91, let's say, you're basically getting Rasul Douglas for Marshawn Lattimore. And that's a trade for as much as I hated the Rasul Douglas trade. If you told me the Rasul Douglas trade was Rasul Douglas for Marshawn Lattimore and Marshawn Lattimore for $1 million in 2024, sign me up for that. That is an easy trade that I'm going to make because Marshawn Lattimore at his best, we're talking about an all-pro player. He's still only 28 years old. This is his 28-year season, in fact. And so he would fit the kind of style you're looking for. Went to Ohio State. Now, Jeff Hafley was the coach after that. But considering all the guys that rave about his relationships, I would not be surprised if he goes to dinner with Marshawn Lattimore. It just seems like he's that kind of guy. That is a move that makes me go, is this the veteran that the Packers are talking about targeting? This is like something that's been discussed, that's been out there in terms of hooked in reporters going, there are teams that think you can get Marshawn Lattimore for the right price. Well, the Packers can pay that price. The question is the juice worth the squeeze? And to me, in both of these cases, I would say on pure draft capital, yes, absolutely. And this is why you have those extra picks. And what a great opportunity for the Packers to add distressed assets to their portfolio. But the money that L'Jarius Sneed is going to want makes this complicated. I don't know. Marshawn Lattimore might want a new deal, but he's got 2 more years left at real money. $16 million is nothing to scoff at. He's not the guy that he was and has not been as healthy lately, but that's the gamble. That's the risk that you run. It is a risk that I'm absolutely willing to take for a guy who, if you get him healthy and you're able to get him, if he's on the field, he's going to vastly outpay the contract, and he's going to vastly outplay whatever you gave up to get him if you're giving up a 3rd round pick, even 58. Now that would be more than I would want, but for basically nothing this year on your cap, that's something that I would do. That's something that I would do for sure. All right, back tomorrow. We are, a week away from the new league year. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready. There's going to be a lot that happens between now and then. We're still waiting on what happens with David Bakhtiari. My guess would be a Friday news dump is coming. And we might do a little bonus app. Just a little quick 10-minute. If it happens on Friday, we'll put out a Friday episode. It'll be in your feed Friday morning. Don't worry. But then maybe if it happens Friday at 5, we'll go live on YouTube and we'll talk about it. Just a little bonus app, just a little morsel, a little happy hour, a little fun that we'll have. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter. Remember, subscribe to all of our platforms, all of our stuffs, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get podcasts, subscribe. Over on YouTube, subscribe. And then follow us on all the socials, Locked On Packers, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook, so you can stay Locked On Packers.